Hello, everyone. This is Kevin. I think time to start. It's 1 p.m. right now in Silicon Valley. KP will be the co-host. KP, say hi to everybody.
All right. Can you all hear me?
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. So KP, you can start.
All right. It's exactly 4 o'clock, so we'll start 4 o'clock Eastern time. Let me just share my screen. All right. So this is our second virtual meetup. The first meetup was mostly for our potential Elastos Bounty Program leaders. And so it wasn't really open to everyone, but this meetup, since it is open to pretty much everyone, so we advertised it on Twitter and Telegram and Reddit. So welcome. I think we have 37 people. What's in the agenda? If you haven't checked out the GitHub page, which I put the same information there. This is the main topic of discussion. Will be just talking about just introduction to Elastos platform, how different pieces fit together, and there's going to be lots of topics that I'm just going to give a brief overview. And if we want to go into deep dive on those topics, we can certainly do that. But it's going to have to be, we're going to have to dedicate each of those topics on a different meetup in the future. So we'll have a review and then the main presentation, and then Clarence will be giving the progress as far as the EBP program is concerned, and then we'll have some discussions, and then we'll do the wrap up. So just a brief review. I don't know how many of you guys have watched the last virtual meetup recording, but it is online on our YouTube channel. So the goal is to have the EVP site completed by late May, early June. The way that it's going to work is anyone can just register on the site when it's ready, and whenever the registration is complete, you will get some voting power, and then for free, and then all the subsequent voting powers will have to be earned through contribution only. And anyone can, there's going to be a round of election for the community leaders all around the world, and anyone can put their name up to be a leader. And people who register for the site, because they will have their some of the voting power, they will be able to use this voting power to vote for the community leaders. The voting power is a limited resource, so it'll expire if you don't use it. So you can't just keep on accumulating voting power forever and then decide to use all at once. That's not how it's going to work. It's going to have a set expiration, and if you don't use it, you lose it. And you only earn voting power by contributing to the project. And this doesn't just apply to developers, but also non-developers, because there's different kinds of bounty programs that we have. And these are earned by doing various bounty tasks. One of the easy examples is referral programs. What we'll have is we'll put up these bounty tasks on the site, and then anyone can just go and do them and earn some ELA along the way. And when you do these bounty programs, you'll not just earn ELA, but also voting power along with it. So in order to keep on gaining those voting power that you can use, you need to keep on contributing, or you're gonna lose it. So voting power will be used, at least initially, to select the community leaders, choose the best DApps in hackathons and various other events. And we may even have like a poll where you can use your voting power to decide what the topic of the next virtual meetup will be, and stuff, small things like that. First community leader elections will be from June 11th through June 25th. The proposals from leaders as far as the tasks for them is June 25th onwards, because that's when the leaders will be selected. We have Europe tour coming up late June, early July. It'll be all over Europe. Global Hackathon will begin through early, and then it'll go for an entire month until August. So at this time, we'll actually have full-time dev support to help with any of the developers who want to participate in the hackathon. And then we'll also have events, meetups, developer meetups throughout this hackathon and before, so that we can prepare everyone for this hackathon coming up. It's not just a 24-hour hackathon. It's going to last throughout the entire month, so people can work on there. DApp app application using the SDK that we provide for a long time. All right, today's presentation is Intro to Elastos Platform. As I said earlier, it is open to the entire community. Also, as I mentioned in the previous meetup, every meetup will have a dedicated audience. We'll have a meetup dedicated to leaders, dedicated developers, which the next meetup, meetup number 3, will be focused towards developers. And then this meetup is focused, for the entire community. All the meetups will be recorded and posted to YouTube. Today's main topic of discussion is Elastos Platform. I'll be going over a brief introduction to various moving parts of Elastos, and we can dedicate future meetups to go in depth on certain topics. So to start with, what is Elastos? I'm sure you all are well aware, at least I hope so, what Elastos is about, but this is a short summary that we came up with. Elastos is the first completely safe and decentralized environment on the internet. Built with blockchain, it provides a virtual ecosystem where decentralized applications are protected from direct access with the internet, while allowing near infinite scalability to billions of users. Elastos is a cyber republic that enables wealth generation through the ownership and exchange of data and digital assets. Welcome to the Internet of Everything, where security and freedom are by design. So we're going to talk about what this all means in this presentation. Feel free to use this, if you have to give a short summary of what Elastos is about. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is how the traditional apps work. And if you haven't checked out a very cool video that Kevin made, it's on his YouTube channel. He goes over different differences between the traditional app, Ethereum DApp, and how the Elastos DApp differentiates itself from these apps. So I'm kind of stealing from his video and just putting those slides together. So as far as how the traditional app works, there's almost always 3 layers. There's a client, which let's say a website, that's a client, or a mobile application. And there's a server in the back end, which the client is always interacting with. And then there's the database where all of the data is stored. That's pretty much how today's applications work. It doesn't matter if it's a web app or a mobile app, whatever the app may be. So the client talks to the server that is running on the cloud, and the server then contacts the database to retrieve some data, and then the server then relays the data back to the client. And the client finally displays the data in the nice little UI or whatever, and does whatever post-processing that is needed. Usually, it's almost certain that all the servers that these clients are talking to are centralized. So, if you think about Facebook, Google, everything, they all have these centralized servers that they talk to when doing these searches or whatever you do on their websites. So how does that compare with the Ethereum DApp? I just took an example for Ethereum because it was really easy to explain. But all the other DApps or other platforms work similarly, at least as of today. There is still a client and a server, but it's a little different because the way that it works is server is still required where the code is hosted, and then for the DApp to talk to the client. And then there is a JavaScript library called Web3. It basically acts as a bridge between a traditional app and the blockchain. So anytime you have to talk to the Ethereum blockchain, you use one of their APIs that they provide. And this Web3 API, it's basically an Ethereum JavaScript API that's a collection of libraries which allows you to interact with a local or remote Ethereum node using a standard HTTP connection. So your client talks to Web3 to talk to the blockchain. Client also talks to the server to talk to the database to retrieve all the data. So this kind of DApp is actually a hybrid DApp because it's still using the server model, the client server model, but it's a little different because it's also interacting with the blockchain to store the immutable data or to perform to execute some kind of smart contracts or whatever the case may be. All right, how does that all compare with the Elastos DApp? In Elastos world, we have an Elastos Runtime sandbox. that hosts the client-side application that's running on a mobile or web. So the way that it works is that this sandbox as actually comes in the form of an SDK. So anytime the DApp, so all the DApp actually runs inside this runtime sandbox environment. So anytime the DApp, an Elastos DApp has to talk to the internet, it has to use Elastos carrier. And all of that needs to be verified. So all the requests that comes through the DApp has to be verified using the Elastos runtime. So this provides a secure, trusted environment where every DApp is completely isolated from one another on each device. And each VM that gets created and destroyed after each use. So the runtime blocks typical HTTPS calls being made to and from the DApps, which is pretty much the source of many man-in-the-middle attacks, any kind of attacks that you see today. So this runtime is a managed environment. This is also called the trust zone because every request has to pass through the runtime first. As far as the Elastos carrier is concerned, it is completely serverless, which means there is no central server that it has to go through. Everything is peer-to-peer. So any kind of connection that you make, it's completely between two nodes. There is no central server that is managing all the requests. Everything goes through person A to person B using the Elastos carrier. And this includes everything is peer-to-peer, and this includes talking to other nodes, database, any kind of distributed storage system like IPFS or even blockchain. All right, continued. So one thing to keep in mind is not every app actually needs a database or a distributed storage. So if you remember, like from earlier, a couple of weeks ago, there was a demo app that we made, a chat app, where as soon as you requested a friend request to another person, you would be able to talk to that person peer-to-peer. The data was not being saved anywhere. As soon as you closed it, it would go away. But just as an example, for storage and payments, you need to you talk to the blockchain through the carrier, and there's also other Elastos runtime modules available, like ElaPay and the DID, decentralized ID, and there's also Ela Wallet. It's pretty much a DApp that uses ElaPay for payments and stuff like that. All of that, it has to be done through these runtime modules that is part of the SDK. So in the future, and this is still being investigated, so things might change, but in the future, it may be possible to embed Web3 into the runtime, so existing Ethereum DApps can also use features of Elastos runtime and can call Ethereum blockchain directly. Not sure where that's going to go, but technically that should be possible. In addition, Ethereum VM can also migrate to Elastos as a sidechain, so you don't really need Ethereum to run the application. You can run everything inside the Elastos runtime. Again, this is completely in its research stage. Things might change in the future, so take it with a grain of salt. But pretty much any VM that's out there that executes any sort of smart contracts, they should be able to be ported to work on Elastos. Elastos DApps are true DApps in the sense that they don't have to contact any centralized servers at all. The communication is done between, and also the DApps for Elastos don't really need to download the code to run the program or upload anything to servers. The communication is done between nodes directly using the peer-to-peer network, using Elastos carrier. So the entire architecture is decentralized. There's a reason that usually DApps and blockchains in general are getting popularity, because centralized servers are really easy to hack and perform a lot of the man-in-the-middle attacks, as you are well aware in the recent news. There is no server to hack on to in the Elastos ecosystem. So in other words, there's really no incentive to hack into anything because the data cannot be leaked. So you don't need a central database either to store personal data or anything, because you can actually use your personal home drive to store all of your personal data when it comes to your data within Elastos DApp, or you can even use like Google Drive or something like that. All right, okay. Another thing is no barrier to develop Elastos DApps. You don't need to be an expert on blockchain, because all of that is abstracted away with the help of the SDK that Elastos provides. So there's already a lot of modules that are available through Elastos Runtime. And most of these are built as sidechains. So for instance, the DID is actually, it acts as a sidechain to the Elastos main chain. So the main chain only does the basic transfer of ELA payments, and that's pretty much the only thing it does. So the challenge, the SDK are available in existing languages like Node.js. The chat app that demo that we had a couple weeks ago, it was using the Node.js. The challenge for developers will be different, because there are no central servers, so you can't really use any of these standard protocols to retrieve information or anything like that. Everything has to be done through the peer-to-peer network using the Elastos carrier, and all of these are done via some sort of function calls that are provided in the SDK. And as a developer, you don't need to know what happens with those function calls. I mean, you're free to check it because everything is open source, but when you're developing your DApp, you don't need to worry about such small details, because all of that is taken care of by the SDK. Another thing to keep in mind is also not everything needs to be decentralized, because sometimes it might just be better to have centralized solutions, because the cost may be higher if you try to decentralize everything, and may even have very low efficiency. So just because you can decentralize something doesn't mean you have to, because the cost of doing that, moving to a decentralized solution, might be more than just having it be centralized. And you only need decentralized solutions if it's necessary and needs to be decentralized, so you can limit the attack vectors from the external sources only in such cases. So there's a little diagram just combining like all of these, how different DApps work. The traditional app, 3-layer structure, client server, database. 3M DApp, there's still that client server, but there's also Web3 library that interacts with the blockchain. And then Elastos DApp, everything is in this sandbox that's running in your device itself. It doesn't use the blockchain to run everything. So the input-output operations are pretty much the same as your regular Android or iOS apps. So, all right, the next topic is merge mining. Again, for the next few topics, I'm going to go through them real quickly, because we can spend like an entire 30 minutes just talking about this. I'm not going to dive into that a whole lot. So Elastos has merge mining. The way that it works is it merge mines with Bitcoin. So miners submit proof of work to both blockchains, so both Bitcoin and Elastos at the same time. And so the consensus is reached on both chains simultaneously. And if you don't know, usually with the Bitcoin, every 10 minutes, a block is generated. With Elastos, with ELA block, it's every 2 minutes. So it's and also the block size for ELA is much higher than Bitcoin as well. So when it comes to merge mining, energy consumption does not really increase with merge mining, because it's already the energy that is being used to mine Bitcoin. It's just piggybacking on top of that energy consumption already. So no matter how many coins start to merge mine, it's really equal to the energy consumed with mining Bitcoin alone. So it's actually profitable and energy efficient to do merge mining. And that's exactly why. And also another reason is because Bitcoin, time and time again, it has stood the test of time when it comes to hackers trying to hack into the network, and with failed attempts. So it has proven to be very very resistant to hackers. So to build off of that security, Elastos does merge mining with Bitcoin. So with doing that, Elastos blockchain has an extremely strong guarantee of computing power as well. And Elastos, another thing is, as the sidechain paper mentions, Elastos sidechains can also utilize this merge mining for their own DApps, provided they all adopt the same proof of work consensus. So you could have multiple DApps using proof of work, and they can do this merge mining on top of ELA mining as well. So this sort of establishes a hierarchy of trust among chains this way. So so the thing is, sidechains, when every DApp can technically have their own sidechain, so they don't really need to they can have their own sidechain, and they can pretty much piggyback if they decide to use proof of work. Obviously, sidechain is free to implement some other consensus if they want, but it's something to keep in mind. Another thing is also with sidechains, you don't need a consensus of like all the nodes in the network for these sidechains. So even one node may be sufficient if you're doing something very simple, and this really does not diminish the reliability of the ledger information on the main chain or other chains. So depending on the use case, DApp may try, like the sidechains may have like different consensus from multiple nodes, one node, 5 nodes, whatever the case may be.
Hold on. Before you move to the next page, there were 2 questions on the chat group. The first one is from D-Dog, Eagle. And his question was, could the merge mining create additional incentive to miners, thereby increasing hash power or energy use? KP, are you going to answer this question?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? You kind of cut off in the middle.
Oh, okay, sorry. The question was, could merge mining create additional incentive to miners, thereby increasing hash power, energy use?
Could merge mining create incentives for miners to create additional hash power? Is that the question?
Can you see that in the chat? The question was in the chat channel.
Okay, let me jump out of this because I can't see the chat from this.
Oh, one. Yeah, that's why I didn't say it.
Okay, I see the chat now. So could merge mining create additional incentive to miners, thereby increasing hash power, energy use? Yeah, that's pretty much why merge mining is used, in order to save the power and energy. If you were to have your own sort of proof of work, like for instance, the way that Ethereum proof of work works is different than Bitcoin. So you can't really merge mine those. So they're all using additional amount of energy to mine those. So when you do merge mining, and no matter how many sidechains decide to do merge mining on top of Elastos, which again is merge mining on top of Bitcoin, they're all utilizing the hash power that already comes with the Bitcoin network. So that does create incentive to miners. I see another question. Bitcoin block time is 10 minutes and ELA block is 2 minutes. I don't understand why in this picture for each ELA block corresponds a Bitcoin block. So that has a long answer. I can try to summarize it a bit, but you can probably look it up online, like how merge mining works. But the way that it works is you don't have to wait all 10 minutes. For instance, with Bitcoin, every block is generated every 10 minutes, but what happens is when you submit a solution to the hash problem, if it's coming from the Bitcoin block, then ELA block, when it tries to mine ELA block, because Bitcoin block mining is already secured enough, it automatically takes the solution and it mines the ELA block that way. But if the solution is not accepted in Bitcoin block, it will definitely be selected in ELA block because the solution to the ELA block is much cheaper and much easier to solve than the Bitcoin block. So that's why you don't need to wait all 10 minutes. You can mine these ELA blocks every 2 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Actually, the miner who is mining the Bitcoin, as long as the miner has a ELA nodes also running in the machine, and the hash power may not match the Bitcoin requirement because Bitcoin is more difficult than ELA because it's 10 minutes, ELA is 2 minutes. So sometimes it can get the hash power meet the requirement of ELA. So this node can propose this block to the ELA community, the ELA nodes. So other people will agree and there will be a new block of ELA. But this hash is not enough to meet the requirement of Bitcoin. So this is not satisfied Bitcoin, but enough for ELA. So that's why the ELA can make 2 minutes a block, but the Bitcoin is 10 minutes a block. So that's the answer.
Right, that's exactly right. And I guess I don't want to derail too further, but one last question, I guess. Do we know the ELA difficulty at the time merge mining will be released yet? So because you can mine these ELA blocks every 2 minutes, obviously the solution is you can get to the solution much faster than mining, let's say, a Bitcoin block. So it really depends on how many miners there are, and the more miners there are, obviously, there's more incentive. So the more miners join the network, and so the difficulty actually rises up that way. I don't know if that answers the question, but I'm going to move on for now. All right, Elastos Carrier. Elastos Carrier is a decentralized peer-to-peer platform. It takes over all the network traffic between virtual machines and conveys information on applications' behalf. ID authentication step is required. Without verifying this ID that's coming from these virtual machines, you cannot, DApps cannot even go to the internet. That's the beauty of Elastos Carrier. Everything has to be verified via runtime first before the request, goes out to other VMs or whatever. And because of this very nature, this prevents a lot of these attacks that are typical in the traditional internet, because no one is really verifying the source of where where these requests are coming from. So you can have, it's very easy to perform a DDoS attack, distributed denial of service attack, in the traditional internet. But this should be very difficult to do because every request that's coming has to be authenticated first if it's coming to the runtime or it's coming from going out of the runtime. So this peer-to-peer system actually secures the communication, because that also means there are no more central servers, no more centralized servers that is managed by anyone, and no content leaking or any sort of man-in-the-middle attack. So whenever, as an example, you might have these exchanges getting hacked all the time. That's because they are managing all that through a centralized server. If there was no server, well, if everything is peer-to-peer, there's no point of, there's no way to do those sort of attacks, and there's no way to hack into system because it's all very decentralized. You can't even get to it. So there is an efficient data transfer between distributed nodes. So when it comes to video and audio streaming or text messaging, when you have this peer-to-peer network, that covers this communication, the data transfer is also very, very fast. So the more nodes there are in the network, obviously the faster this is going to be, because there's going to be more relay nodes in the network to be used for this peer-to-peer network. So this is pretty much similar to how let's say BitTorrent works. So that is also peer-to-peer, I guess. So Elastos Carrier leverages trusted ID to make communication more reliable, trustworthy, and secure. Again, this ID comes from this This ID comes from the blockchain itself. It acts as a sidechain to Elastos main chain, but obviously everything in the Elastos ecosystem has an ID. So any kind of request that you make from this Elastos ecosystem has to be trusted and has to be verified from the blockchain. Okay, I'm not going to go over too much into what Elastos OS is because that is not the primary focus right now. The majority of the development is focused towards the Elastos runtime. But the way that Elastos OS works is it's pretty much an operating system that can be installed directly on the device. So you have your smartphone that might have an Android or iOS on your iPhone. Those are also operating systems. So you could have a smartphone with Elastos operating system installed on it directly. Or you can even have this installed in smart routers or some of the IoT devices like Raspberry Pi or whatever. So that's pretty much how Elastos OS works. The reason that I wanted to focus on Elastos runtime is because majority of the development is being done with regards to this, and because there is already when you're focused on Elastos runtime, you can actually install this on top of any existing operating systems. So you don't need to install this Elastos operating system on each and every device. You can install this Elastos runtime embedded app on any of the device out there. So Elastos runtime is a runtime environment for DApps to run on. It is a C virtual machine similar to Java virtual machine without all the vulnerabilities introduced by bridges such as the JNI, the Java native interface. Because when you have to talk to the kernel, directly to the hardware, you have to go through some sort of bridge in Java virtual machine. With C, because you can interact with most of the kernels are written in C, so you can do that directly from the C virtual machine. So there's no reason for the code to escape this sandbox environment that is created, and that leaves it that makes it very secure and protects against a lot of the attacks that might come along. As I said earlier, it runs on the existing OS, and it has better integration with current mainstream OS such as Android, iOS, Windows, whatever. It ensures formation of a closed runtime environment, so that enables the separation from the host OS. So nothing that happens on your host OS, so like your Android device itself, that has no effect because everything is in the sandbox environment. So because of that, also it ensures the safety of your data and code, and that is also one of the reasons that Elastos is able to secure the digital assets in Elastos runtime, because it is secured and completely isolated from everything else. Another thing is all these DApps. There are no more IP addresses. Instead, they will have these IDs, DIDs assigned to them. And I don't want to get too technical, but discovery mechanism, you might be wondering, well, how are you going to get to a DApp if you don't know the IP address? You can use a service similar to a DNS where you register a particular DID with dgoogle.com or whatever that you can put on the browser app that has Elastos runtime embedded in it. And so you can access the DApps that way on the Elastos internet. And this is the platform where each VM has its own ID. And this pretty much prevents apps and services from directly accessing the internet, because all the requests has to go through this runtime. All right, I got 5 more minutes. I might take over some of the time assigned to Clarence, but we'll see how it goes. I got like 3 or more slides to go. So smart contracts. Usually when computationally expensive smart contracts are deployed on the main chain, every node in the network will need to constantly update, even if they're not invoked. So this kind of creates a burden on pure verification nodes, such as mining nodes, because even if they're not really doing anything, they can still receive fees for processing transactions. So for instance, as a famous example used by Ron many times, deployment of CryptoKitties had this exact issue when the gas price for Ethereum went through the roof, because all of that data was backed up pretty heavily. So the miners had to be paid insanely high gas price to get the transactions into the blocks, into the blockchain, Ethereum blockchain. So Elastos, what it does is Elastos main chain limits smart contracts usage and delegates them to sidechains instead. So anything with smart contracts, or anything really except the ELA payment, because that is the only thing that happens on the main chain. Everything else is delegated to sidechains. So you might have like many different sidechains with implementing their own smart contracts, whatever. And each sidechain may design smart contract functionality independently from one another. So this also keeps smart contract execution as separate sidechains. What that does is, and this works similar to how Neo Contract supports the Neo blockchain, because it also helps in isolating smart contract bugs from having side effects to other smart contracts as well. Because at the end of the day, when these smart contracts are running on the Ethereum VM on the blockchain, they're running on the same Ethereum VM, even if they might be across multiple nodes. So there might be a chance to have some sort of side effects, but this sort of thing will not be happening, because every sidechain will work independently. So you not only have DApps running in their own isolated environment, but also these smart contract executions. Elastos blockchain. It works as the trust zone for the entire network operating system. It applies main chain and sidechain solutions. Every application can create individual sidechain. It provides built-in, complete, easy-to-use sidechain support. So whenever the development is complete, sidechains will be easily customizable. So any consensus method may be used, and tokens can also be published on the sidechain. So they might have their own tokens. All right, Elastos main chain sidechains. Blockchain in general is computationally slow. So any system built with blockchain technology has less computing power than let's say a traditional computer. So this sort of issue is prevalent when you think about gaming apps, or when you have an app streaming an HD movie. This is exactly the reason why blockchain still cannot be applied on the internet at a large scale. You're limited by so much you can do with the current blockchain architecture, that it's really difficult to have these gaming apps, example of CryptoKitties. So since you can scale Elastos blockchain system by providing support for sidechains, it's able to run applications with high input-output operations per second. So the DApps for Elastos that will be running, they'll be running on the device itself. So the speed of these DApps will be pretty similar to your existing Android or iOS apps. So the main chain will only be used for trading and transferring ELA, and only major infrastructure upgrades will take place on the main chain. So so that way, everything else that's happening, with the DApp doesn't really affect any of the DApps that are running on the Elastos ecosystem, because they have their own sidechains. Continued, all smart contracts can be implemented on sidechains, enabling scalability. It will pave the way for a future blockchain paradigm. And as you can see, more and more, other projects have also started to utilize a similar concept, where there's no way that a single blockchain can fit the needs of every single use case out there. So there needs to be some sort of solution out there, and Elastos just decided to approach it this way, with main chain doing very easy task what the blockchain was designed to do originally, and using sidechains for pretty much everything else. So when everything is live, basic services will be available as sidechains, And additional sidechains may also be developed for individual use cases for each DApp. So some of the examples of sidechains that are going to be available are ID generation, token distribution, digital asset trading, and so forth. And all of these are what make up the Elastos Smart Web. So Elastos will also provide support for third-party sidechain development. It's another really customizable there. All right, almost on time. And then I can take some questions. And so coming from a review, Elastos public chain is clean and simple. It is hidden from third-party apps and services. Elastos prevents overload of the main chain by having these sidechains that are built into the platform. They're all working independently. Elastos promotes the property rights of digital content. This is only possible because of the secure sandbox environment that is provided by Elastos Runtime, along with the addition of issuing ID to each and everything that's running on the Elastos platform. So, every digital asset has its own ID. So, combining both of those technologies, you can create this scarcity in with digital assets. And that's pretty much the focus of Elastos. So Elastos OS runs independently and is installed directly on the hardware, like mobile phones, smart routers, etc., IoT devices. Elastos Runtime runs on top of existing OS, like Android, iOS, Linux. Separation of apps from the network ensures that digital content won't be leaked. The local OS also won't be able to sabotage the property rights of digital assets because of that ID system and the sandbox environment. So the value is preserved. Both the Elastos smart contracts and Elastos DApps run on the smart web compared to today's hybrid DApps, which are run separately. So this avoids the necessity of moving on and off the blockchain. This is what creates a special economic zone. Because when you have this Elastos Smart Web pretty much handling each and every request that's coming and going through this network, where everything is verified to the blockchain and everything is secured nicely in a nice little sandbox environment, that creates its own little ecosystem, and that's pretty much what Elastos is trying to do with these digital assets and the circulation of these digital assets. So all of the above is what enables a closed cycle of production, transaction, and consumption that is necessary for creating wealth. Let me see if there's any questions.
There was one question from the chatting group from Michael. His question was related to the carrier. So he asked it, how we can connect the RT, the Elastos app system, the world, to the outside world, like a traditional web server. And my answer on the chat group is, if your application is a pure DApp, you actually do not need to contact the outside world. The reason is the outside world is not trustable. There could be a virus, malicious wire could be in the website, and if you contact the outside world, there's no guarantee the code is safe. So if you do things right, you don't really need to contact the outside world. And if you really need, usually you can through a proxy. That's the proxy you trust. The proxy will not give you a wrong code or some malicious wire injected into the code. So you trust some proxy, the proxy can do that. And also another thing is a lot of common used either binary code or source code. For example, Bootstrap, CSS framework. A lot of people use Bootstrap or React or Vue.js. Those typical code will be cached in the runtime, in the RT. And once you load the code, you actually not going to the CDN to download the code. You actually can get the code from the Elastos caching system, something similar to IPFS. So the code is already then, you're either in your virtual machine or some neighbor, you will connect to get the source code directly. And that is secure because all the hash is signed and be verified by the runtime. So you don't really worry about to download some code, but the hacker injects some code into it and you don't know and run it and it cause some trouble. You don't worry about that because it's secured by the runtime. So that was my answer for Michael's question. I know some people using phone to call in and they have no way to see the chat group. So that's why I answer in the chat group, but also repeat in the meeting so other people will know what was the question and what was the answer. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you for that explanation. Do we have any more questions? Oh. All right, we got a question, I guess. We saw how DApp works, but how can Elastos create scarce assets? Is an asset like picture, video, like an indent DApp? So the way that the scarce assets work is at the beginning, usually the content creators, they write a smart contract to produce a certain number of copies for a particular asset. So this asset may be a game or a movie or music, whatever. It can be anything really that you can play on Elastos Runtime. So you create, let's say, 10,000 copies of a game, of a movie, and then you can only do this once, because once the smart contract is deployed, you can't really change the number of copies later on. That would be going against the very idea of scarce assets. So that's pretty much how you create a digital asset. The way I think that what you're referring to is, does every video have to be a digital asset? Well, not really, because you can have like a streaming service where, I don't know, like people might decide to have their video streamed here. So you don't really need to, unless you're actively selling it on the market and you have deployed a smart contract that is attached, that has these signatures attached to every single digital asset, then you don't really need it. It's really, when you want to create scarcity for something that you think has value in the market, and then you decide to make it a scarce digital asset, and then you can start selling them and trading them and whatever else you want to do.
Okay, let me add my 2 cents on this question. Actually, this question was asked many times on my YouTube channel, and I specifically recorded one video talking about this question. So if you have time, you can go to my YouTube channel and you can find, I think it was in the redefined consensus, that part answers this question. Let me repeat, let me try to make this short, because I know a lot of questions are waiting. The first thing is the video or picture. You actually do not download or buy the source. The source means the binary of the data. You actually, what you get is a runnable, executable binary, like the application. Let's say, for example, I buy a picture or buy a movie. When what I actually got is not the data, it's an application. It's another DApp. The DApp name will be the name of movie, like Forrest Gump. I got a Forrest Gump, but that is an executable DApp. When the DApp starts, they will check a lot of things. For example, checking itself is modified or not, is altered by some people or not. Checking the RT, the runtime is hacker injected or not. Make sure everything is correct, and the application will send the hash to the producer. The producer is who you buy the video from. For example, the Hollywood movie producer. They will check the hash, compare the hash to the blockchain, which was already in the blockchain, to make sure that the hash of the RT and hash of the DApp is not altered. So in that case, if the producer can confirm that your application is correct, that nobody altered, and they can give you a key to unlock the content of the movie, that you can play the movie. Because the application was not altered, the original function of the media player will not have a feature to download the file into out of the Elastos world. For example, you can try to download the movie into an MP4 file. You cannot do it because the feature will not provide by RT. And because you cannot modify it, once you modify the app or modify the RT, the hash will not match the original hash of the RT and the app. And the producer will notice that your RT is modified, and the producer will not send you a key, so you cannot unlock the movie and you cannot watch it. So this is a one thing. Another thing I mentioned in my somebody like Marcus post a link in the group chat. That is my video explaining this question. Another thing is related to the consensus. So not everything is related to blockchain. Some of the some of the real life world doesn't have to be related to the blockchain. For example, let's say a game. Use game as an example. Some game like esports, some kind of tournament, the gamer really want to win the championship, so he has to get the consensus from other player. But if you just want to play a game to enjoy yourself at your home, you don't really care about any kind of a championship or tournament. You just want to play, enjoy yourself. It's nothing to do with consensus. Then in this case, I don't really consider this is something we can deal with using the blockchain. So we can deal with the blockchain with the consensus. So for example, a gamer like I mentioned, like do the tournament, they have to get a consensus from other people. So we can use the blockchain technology to make sure he is the winner or who is not the winner. Detail, we can go to my YouTube channel, and I'm not going to spend too much time now on this kind of question, but it's a very interesting question, but you can go to the YouTube to see the detail. Okay.
All right. We have gone too far into Clarence part, so we'll just move on. Sorry about all the questions that we didn't get through. I think there was one more question, but we'll just move on, and we can take that offline. I think the next one is Clarence, so I'll just have you take over.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you stop your share screen? I actually need to share my screen. I might need permission, so let's see here. Oh, great. I don't. Okay. Do you guys see my
Yeah, I can see that.
website?
Clear.
Awesome. And then just wanted to answer that question that was just asked, because I think that one was also pretty interesting about how to get content creators on it. And I want to just answer that really quickly, since I have 2 seconds. We're trying to make things as easy as possible for existing application developers to migrate to our system. So basically creating services that they're used to using, like if you have S3 or servers. If they're trying to build traditional apps, we're going to try to accommodate those people too. So we're not totally just going to force everyone to shift to a new paradigm or anything like that. And once those people develop apps on our platform, a lot of those apps might be like YouTube's or music players. And once we have those things going, like SoundCloud, et cetera, then once we have those apps on Elastos, there's going to be a pretty high incentive to develop content on Elastos, because unlike YouTube or something where you just get paid pennies, here you actually might be able to make a decent living. Like there's actually an ecosystem here where content actually can be used to create a living. Cool. So jumping on to Elastos, the bounty program, not that as much progress as I had hoped. We've been really busy getting some things running. So community meetups and such. Next week, two developers, including myself, will be full-time on this. So we should get it out. It's a pretty straightforward project, so I don't imagine it being too difficult. Just want to go over this really quickly. So you can see that the general layout is pretty much similar to the Elastos.org website. This is I want to give a shout out thanks to Rosh from Australia, one of our leaders who did the initial mock-ups for this. So thank you, Rosh. Basically, you can see that you can create tasks in social or developer sections and submit issues. You can submit contributions for Elastos, and leaders can create these events and go through. We don't have it yet, but under tasks, they can review their task and check this approval process, and once they're approved, they will show up in this page. So we're just going to basically try to get as many events ongoing as possible. And you'll see that I'll just give a really quick walkthrough. There'll be a community page. This will allow us to create new communities and assign new people. So as we grow, we can make communities for schools, any region, any city, states, etc., and get more assistance helping out. We definitely want to encourage you leaders not to undertake everything yourself. I know it's great to have a central role in things, but we also really want to grow as fast as possible. So we have to scale. So we definitely want to create as many smaller regions and communities as possible. You'll be listing the leaders, and if KP hasn't mentioned to you yet, the leaders will also be hosted on the Elastos.org website. So you're really going to be quite prominent. The leaders will be listed directly on Elastos.org under our own section for the community, and your picture will be there, and that will give you some authority when you go out there and organize meetups. So that's a huge incentive just to even be a leader, is you'll gain that recognition, and that'll be pretty much part of your legacy in a way if you really create some amazing meetups and communities. And don't know if you saw this or not, right? But there is a Vietnam meetup already. This is not released yet, but we're announcing this soon, June 14th. Hopefully, that's a tentative one, so it's not out yet. But we have someone very prominent in the Vietnamese blockchain community that will be organizing a meetup before the European tour. And we're also looking into Hong Kong. So we already have leaders starting. We've given out a few initial ELA upfront payments. They have their money, they have their mandate, they're already planning their venues. So hopefully this Vietnam meetup turns out to be pretty cool. There were some internal chats. We discovered that Hong Kong was the number 3rd most for the search results. Hong Kong was like number 3 for Elastos, which was pretty amazing. I never thought that Hong Kong might have that kind of search results, but Hong Kong is also another place we've already invested in. So we're hoping to get started there. And we're looking into expanding into pretty much a lot of Southeast Asia because there's a lot of developers there, India as well. Cool, and that's all I have to share. I'm going to stop my share screen here.
Okay, there's lots of questions.
Yeah, Clarence, can you see the question? You can answer that.
Yeah, end of month initial release, and then we're gonna go. We're not gonna have voting ready right out the door, and teams might be late, but depends on how busy we get with managing these upcoming meetups. Copies of submissions for HK and Vietnam. Really, it's super simple. We have the new template out, and we don't actually want much detail. We just want kind of an estimate of how much you're going to spend, and then at the moment we don't have any numbers to go off on. So I mean, we'll see what kind of participation. We like I said in the guidelines, we just want to get it out there with minimal advertising, just to gauge what the current community is like, and then we can decide where we want to focus our efforts. South California meetup planned. There's going to be a lot. I don't know, actually. I know Faye has some of her own too, but I think the Euro Tour for now is all we have.
Yeah, currently there is at least one leader there already. If you go to the Bounty Program GitHub, I believe there is at least one there. But we haven't planned anything yet. So in my view, in my point of view, as long as in your local community, you can have like a 10, 20, 30 developer can get together, you can organize a meetup. We will send one people, either myself or Kieran or Clarence, to your own city and to have this kind of meetup. So if you really want to do that and you have some idea and you can organize this kind of meetup, just submit a proposal and including your budget. And once we approve, then we can planning the time and the venue, something like that. So they're just open to everybody, all the leaders to give us a proposal.
Right, and also Like even if, so we said that there will be voting for the leaders later down the road. But if you get started, if you start sending us your proposals, and if you actually, organize these meetups successfully, then you can put that on your resume when you put out, well, not resume, but when you put out your name to be a community leader in the future, you can put that out and then people can vote for you. So, you
Yeah,
can
exactly. So we encourage people to start doing this kind of thing right now before any other people start. If you are a first mover, you actually can get a lot of advantage over other people. So you will very be likely to to be the leader in your city.
Yep.
D-Dog has a good question. Beyond looking for devs and organizing meetups, are you looking to have freelance business development, building ties on behalf of Elastos with existing businesses in our respective countries, for instance? And I did give away a little bit of information earlier in Slack, sneak peek in a way. We are going to try to refocus or heighten our efforts to talk to businesses. So that's something that's definitely going to be upcoming. We definitely feel like some strategic partnerships are, warranted right now. We're getting into the point of stage where we want to grow exponentially, want to have sponsorships or sponsor other events, teaming up with other blockchains to host events, and try to grow exponentially. So the more help we can bring on, the better.
Awesome. I think those are all the questions we have.
Are we allowed to sponsor blockchain meetups? If you want to sponsor them, if you have a company or something, yeah, we'd love to work with you if you have some some plan already ongoing. That's all the questions, I guess.
Oh, there's one more question from Easy Breezy. Intended lifespan for the bounty program?
A long time. We have millions of ELA that we're going to invest in the community. Hopefully this becomes a much larger website, basically, where we actually have a pool of developers that we can, eventually hire full time. And once we start looking into enterprise apps or partnering with businesses, that we can have them go out there and train, their engineers and have them help them build apps on Elastos, and we'll make strategic investments in those companies, and it should be very lucrative for any developers to get involved. Yes, Nick, we are already thinking about people. Yeah, there's definitely going to be some people try malicious parties, so we'll try to think about ways to limit any,
And also for Nick's question, that's not a problem because we are not the one people, one vote. We actually vote by how many voting power you have. The voting power is not getting for free. You actually have to do some contribution to get the voting power. If you have a 2 account or 10 account, the total voting power is still a fixed amount. So it's actually no incentive for people to have a multiple account.
Great,
right.
Yeah, definitely a good point.
So we did mention that whenever users first register, they will get some voting power. That's only for a limited time. So it's not like, you can keep on creating these accounts in the future and accumulate voting power.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And no, Borden, not everyone can organize hackathons. So the way it's going to work is that the leaders can, the country leader, for example, will definitely be able to organize hackathons. If you have a smaller hackathon you want to do in your school or maybe your city, and there isn't that community already existing, then you can apply to be a leader for that, region, and then we can maybe allow you to be a leader for that region. Or you could talk to one of the existing leaders and ask them if you can help out. And we definitely want assistance. We don't want any of our leaders to do anything completely by themselves.
Right, and the leaders, usually if it's a big meetup that they're planning or hackathon even, they usually have assistants for them. So if there's already other people in the area, then they can probably collaborate with them. Even like multiple leaders, in the same country can collaborate and then organize a big meetup. So that works out in everyone's favor.
There was a question from Michael. Did I interrupt you?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was a question from Michael. The question was, if, say, someone has an idea for a DApp but no dev skills, would it possible to leverage Elastos DApps to blah, blah, blah? Okay, so that is a good question. The purpose of building the EBP, one of the purpose is to connect the developers to the entrepreneur. Let's say if you have a good idea, you can post your proposal idea into EVP in the future. And we may have some kind of a hackathon for ideas only. And we actually can post your idea, and the other developers assume the EVP can gather a lot of developers in the system. And they will likely to like your idea and join a team. You actually can post your you can post your project as a bounty program, so you can hire other developer from EVP to join your project. So yes, this is something we're gonna do, and this is one of the goal to building EVP.
Yeah. Quick questions. Some of them really quick ones. DDog, is Slack open? Yes, it is to members or leaders only. So as long as you're a contributor of some sort, so not the general public, but if you want to contribute, you are welcome to join the Slack. When the site is up, once you create an account, we'll let you into Slack. Can you be a leader in a region that you don't live in? Technically, no, but we are making some considerations already. Generally, we're not going to fly you over there, but if you have connections and you can delegate, we do want leaders to delegate. So, but even then, it's going to be a case-by-case basis. Bounty websites, not up yet. So, we were trying to come up with a better name for EBP. There was some feedback that EBP is a bit generic. So we kind of wanted to give a feeling of like a city of Zion thing, like a community that you can be proud to be of. And if anyone has some any cool names, we definitely would like to hear them. Will EBP, it'll be in Elastos DApp future? Definitely, yes. One of the reasons why we're writing EBP from scratch is because we want to be able to migrate it to Elastos web in the future.
Oh, another question from Chris. Chris asking, in addition to this meeting, can country leaders organize virtual meetups where we can present? Oh, yes, of course. We actually can open to either like offline meetups, like face-to-face, and the virtual meetups, as long as you can have a group of developers or some Elastos lovers together. If you have enough people, we don't mind to fly over there to have a face-to-face meeting. If only a few people, like maybe we don't really want to fly that far, we can do a online meeting. And if the meeting is online, a virtual meeting, it doesn't limit it by the geolocation. We actually can have by topic, like we're talking about the carrier, we're talking about the sidechains. So it's not just for a city or for one university. So that's nothing to do with the geolocation. It's just a topic. So the answer is yes, but it's broader than what you think. And the face-to-face meeting, because the physical limitation, we have to be there. So we will require a local leader to be prepared well, to have people stand up, and then we can plan. My recent plan for the next month would be the Boston would be the first stop, possibly next week or maybe 2 weeks later, and then it will be Hong Kong and Vietnam, and after that it will be Europe. The Europe tour, currently we are still planning. We haven't got any confirmation yet, but likely we'll visit a few countries, including the Netherlands, because there is a conference there. Netherlands and Switzerland, France, Germany, Berlin, and possibly other country we're still planning. So if you have any idea and you can organize this kind of a meetup in any European country, just contact us as soon as possible. Likely, we're starting the journey starting from Switzerland on June 23rd, based on my current estimation. And I don't know which was the second country, but June 27th, we will be in Amsterdam. And after that, possibly we are going to France. And we don't have very confirmed schedule yet. So if you still have some idea, for example, you want to set up a meetup in Berlin or in London, even London is not in our plan. But if you know you can make this kind of a meetup, just let us know. And we don't mind to just go to London for a meetup to meet the leaders and the local community developers. I don't mind to go there. Since we already been in Europe, it's a pretty long trip. So I hope to meet more people along the trip. Just let us know. Okay.
Kevin's going everywhere. I'm probably going to join Vietnam, Hong Kong. I'm busy for the Europe tour, so I'll probably just be working.
Yeah, and the KP will have a personal vacation in Europe, but it's not to work.
Yeah. I'll be out.
Okay, Chris said he's going to make a meeting in London in late June, early July. I think the time is matched. The time matches our schedule. So Chris, just contact me directly, or any KP or parents, contact us directly, and telling us what you're going to do and where it is and who's going to attend and what topic, what kind of topic you want us to talk, and then we can schedule. I believe I will be around somewhere in Europe at the time, so I think I can get there. All right. Thank you.
All right. I think that's. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So just wrapping up, I think we're right on time. The next meetup will be sometime next week before, and then I have a personal vacation coming up for like the next 3 weeks because I'm going to be traveling to Europe, not for the Europe tour, but for something else. But we'll see like what, if we want other meetups that Clarence or Kevin can organize. But if not, we'll definitely have next meetup next week. That will be more developers focused. We'll talk about various Elastos GitHub projects and how you can get started as a developer and have any sort of questions that you might have, or if you know someone, any of the developers that you might want to bring them to Elastos, then feel free to send them an invite. We'll probably get that time and day finalized pretty soon, hopefully before tomorrow. And we'll advertise that through Twitter and Telegram and Reddit, so you'll have all that information. Events on the horizon, the SPV should be complete by the end of May. The DID, end of June. We have Europe Tour, June to July. Hackathon going on throughout the entire month of July, August. I think we got all the questions. So last but not least, we'll leave some some words of wisdom from Kevin, and then I think we should wrap up.
I didn't prepare. Okay. Yeah. So I would like to say, I not only want to tell you about what Elastos is and what Elastos trying to do. I also have a lot of questions, unsolved problem. For example, some people ask me, what if the game player, they don't really want consensus, they just play game? Is there any way to protect that? And currently, I don't have a solution yet. So I'm looking for anybody in the community to give some idea to me. And another question is the smart contract. I actually not totally agree with the Ethereum solution to run the smart contract on every machine and to get a consensus. I was thinking there must be some better solution. Put the smart contract into small chunks, small functions. Then we run the functions in a large amount of nodes, but not every node. I mean, at least 4 nodes for the Byzantine fault tolerance. Then we have a operating system like Elastos RT to manage the process of the function call one by one. Eventually, we can get a consensus computed result. But this is not something similar to Ethereum, because we don't really need the code to be running in every machine. We just group the different machines into small groups. Then each group will run a function, and there will be a node to like arbiter to get a result and then run a Byzantine fault tolerance to get the consensus. So if this can work, we actually can make a much, much faster smart contract runtime than existing Ethereum. So I have this idea for about almost 1 year, but I still have a lot of technical difficulty haven't been solved in my mind. So I'm wondering if anybody interested in this topic, maybe we can have another like a special topic meeting, or I can just shoot some video to tell everybody what I'm thinking and what I haven't been solved, what question is not being solved. So if you're interested in this kind of topic, actually I like to talk to you. We can send better idea. If we got the people like have better idea and we have a solution, I believe this will be a bigger project than existing Ethereum. So I really want more people to give your idea and contribute to us. This would be it's a word of wisdom, but it's kind of long. Sorry about that.
Awesome. Yeah. Kevin and I have talked a lot about this. I just want to add something really quick to what Kevin was saying too. And I mentioned this really briefly earlier too about creating an ecosystem too, where traditional app developers migrating from other, platforms can come into Elastos and feel, at home. And this is one of the things where we kind of want to start creating services and things like even what Kevin was saying is a bit more advanced, which is a consensus-based runtime, like maybe something like AWS Lambda. Have you ever heard of that? Which is like short functions that run. And this is what Kevin's saying is even more advanced than that, which is breaking up a function into even smaller chunks of code.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to run that on every single node. So it's really cool. We definitely want to have more technical discussions. So like if Kevin, maybe we can have like more technical channels for to join in, and we can start talking about technical things too.
Yeah, sure.
Once we have developers on EBP too, we'd love to maybe have technical channels.
Yeah, and some people say that technical videos are the best. Yes, I will shoot some videos. And by the way, if you haven't watched, I did the 2 series of video explaining Elastos. One is a carrier explained it, and another is like Elastos redefined series. You can go to my channel to watch the video. And I really want you to give me more suggestion, like which one do you like, and what do you want the next video series to be? And your feedback is our motivation. All right. Thank you.
Awesome. So with that, I'll answer one last question from Richard. Do you guys have reading materials for beginners? So I actually do have a plan because right now we have a beginner's guide to Elastos on Reddit, and Reddit really doesn't allow more than a certain number of characters, so I can't really keep on updating that forever. So what I was thinking is I'm going to move all of that content over to our GitHub page and then have a link on Reddit pretty much on the daily discussion page every day, so people can go to our GitHub. So when they go to this link in GitHub, it'll be like reading an electronic PDF or something where they can click links and learn about Elastos. And we'll have beginner's guide, not just for sort of that will act as an introduction to Elastos, but also to the developers and how they can get started. So we'll have both of those 2 different kinds of beginner's guide on GitHub pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. All right. So with that said, I think our time is up. It's perfect on time. Thanks everyone for joining. We have 51 people joining today, so hopefully we have more in the future. But this video should be uploaded and on YouTube pretty soon. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Yeah, and by the way, this time we try to make the time familiar to friendly to the Europe country, because it's kind of right time for Europe, but not a very ideal time for the Asian people. So next time we may try to find another time which may be better friendly to the Asian people. So European people may be another round. So just we will try to put the time like a one time for Europe, one time for Asia.
Yeah, and don't forget, we have the Vietnam, Hong Kong meetups that are in the works right now. So if you know people out there, definitely we'd love you to spread the word. We'll have more information shortly.
Yeah, sure. All right, thank you, everyone. Yeah, just join us to the Telegram or Slack channel, YouTube channel, Medium. We Elastos anywhere. So just join us and give us your feedback and your proposal, and we're looking to see you next time. Bye.